So today I wanted to finally take a look underneath my 1988 Celica Alltrac. I've been working on the restoration on this car for I guess about 3 years. I drove the car for a long time. I had painted it once. I really should have taken my time and done a better job. I think I blew it out on like a 4-day weekend or something like that, just because at the time it was multiple colors. So anyway, I was replacing the engine. I decided the engine compartment had to look as good as a new engine. Then I painted the engine compartment, and then I looked at the new engine and it didn't look good enough. So I took it all apart and I powder coated everything. So one thing led to another, and what you're gonna see is I did the undercarriage as nice as I possibly could. I had a limited number of parts available. It's getting tough to find parts for this car. I started out with a decent car, rust-free car. So I had a good basis to start with. And well, you'll get to see. I had posted up a little video here when I was tinkering around with my YouTube just to show the status where it was at the time. Well, now the undercarriage is pretty much ready to go. I've driven the car. I got one more ABS speed sensor to work out, but other than that, it's pretty much ready to go. So let's take a look and we'll get a tour underneath this bad boy. So I took the fuel tank out, refinished the fuel tank. The inside of the tank was really clean. One of the things that I have always really respected about these Japanese cars, and what really got me into them when I started working on these cars back in the 80s, was stuff like this, okay? They put a drain plug in the fuel tank, not just so you could drain the fuel tank for service, but you could drain the fuel tank and know that you didn't have any water in the fuel tank, which was really cool. All right. I mean, they really spared no expense. Like I said, I tried to get everything as finished as nice as possible. You know, you can see I put Cosmoline in almost everything that I reassembled. When you take a look at the hardware, you'll see that I used anti-seize on most all the hardware. This, when I got the car, I was lucky enough, had a really nice factory muffler on it. I did have to make some repairs to it, so I had to make up a few, custom pipes, and I had to route it all so it fit in its original location. And it's tight squeeze under here, being an all-wheel drive car. So for any of you guys that aren't familiar with the car, this is a homologation special vehicle. So they built these cars so that they would be qualified to race in Group B rally. So it's turbocharged 3S GTE, really a dynamite engine. They're super, super sturdy. Top Secret Racing for a while had a Drift Supra, and they actually took out the 2JZ so that they could run a 3S GTE, and they were squeaking like 700 horsepower out of it, and they ran the thing for an entire drift season, and it would hold up. It really is a bulletproof engine. As I understand it, the 2JZ was built from the 3S GTE, so that replaced the S7M GTE, which the old Supras had. So you guys can see, I refinished everything from the strut housings. I took the rear differential apart. I powder coated the rear differential cover, and the big thing was, it wasn't so much that I wanted everything to be so darn pretty under here, but I want to be able to drive the car. If I get out in the rain, it's not going to rust, and I'm preserving this thing. What you're looking at now is the lines, the brake lines and the fuel lines. And there are a lot of them. And you might wonder, like, holy cow, why so many lines? Well, here's the deal. This car is ABS, 1988, all right? And the ABS pump is located in the back of the car. So consequently, we got, the front and rear circuit lines come out of the master cylinder, and they are all routed back to the back of the car where the ABS pump is. And then the lines go back out forward again, back to all the brakes. So you can see that I powder coated the control arms. I powder coated the strut housings, like I said, all new brake lines, rebuilt the calipers. Exhaust system was a tough part because I wanted to get this thing as close to stock as possible. I'll take a look at that. Now, the other challenge was my ABS wheel speed sensor. I couldn't find those puppies anywhere, and they weren't the same as a Camry Alltrac. They were pretty unique, so I ended up having to get a Ford. I just happened to run across a four-wheeled speed sensor, didn't have a bracket, and I was able to do a little machine work and mount the speed sensor into the Alltrac bracket. So we see how good that works. So let's take a look at this exhaust. So I left the monolith is still up there. That's a monolith cat. That is basically comes right off the turbocharger. And all the brackets, this thing has brackets everywhere. Brackets everywhere because, like I said, it was a car that was designed for rally. This, for instance, this is super unique, and we'll get to see this when I lower the car and you look at the engine compartment. This is a cold air intake for the alternator. So, since the alternator is up there close to the turbocharger, it required some cooling. I did add the heat wrap to this because I didn't have the factory heat shields, unfortunately. I did keep the factory bracket and I did get it all routed. The other thing, under that heat wrap, there are a lot of welds to get all these bends and everything exactly where it needed to be. But I got it as close to the factory locations as I could. The next thing you'll see here is that, yes, I did put a catalytic converter back on it here. Part of the thing, and when you guys get a chance to even look at my old MG, all right, you'll see that I even have a catalytic converter on that. And it's not so much that I'm a crazy tree hugger, as when I'm driving the car, I don't want to smell the exhaust. So, frankly, I'm okay with the cat. And I don't feel like they take really that much power if you have a free-flowing catalytic converter. This mid pipe is an original pipe. I think I made a couple little repairs to it. You can see here I had to make some repairs. That's the factory resonator. And I got everything routed exactly where it's supposed to go. So this is that's pretty much the whole tour of the undercarriage. How this drive system works, if you're not familiar with these, it's got a viscous center differential. So it's not locked, it's a viscous slip unit in the middle, okay, and a conventional differential in the rear. This was a rust-free car when I bought it. I got started with a good vehicle, so it wasn't all that bad trying to get everything really, really nice. But I put a lot of time into just the details, every nut and bolt, and just trying to make this car as close to stock as possible, but everything painted and finished nice enough that I still won't feel bad driving it and it'll be preserved. So I did buy a JDM engine for it. I did re-ring it, put some rod bearings, main bearings in it, resealed everything, and powder coated a whole bunch of parts. So let's see. I had somebody comment on the Fury about the windshield washer tank. I must have a thing with windshield washer tanks because I even wanted to make sure I had a nice windshield washer tank in this one, even though once the inner fender liner's there, nobody's going to see it ever again. So that's a pretty good tour of the front end of this car. All right, front end, undercarriage, rear suspension. So strut-wise, I get stock springs in it. I have KYB cartridges in it. I put new brake lines on it, rebuilt the calipers and all that good stuff. And everything looks kind of shiny because I have metal protectant on everything. And if we try to look real close, I tried to make it pretty, even the places where the average person doesn't see. But I know it's in there. And I know how the car is supposed to be. The car just deserved some special treatment, I felt like. It's just such an unusual car. The numbers, I believe, are somewhere around 9,000 of these were built. I don't know how accurate that is. So I've got a note on it. It was made in the Aichi Prefecture, I believe, something like that. So there you go. That's the undercarriage. So I'm going to hang this camera up here a second. I'll lower the car down. We'll take a look under the hood. The tires, I even put the exact stock size tire on it. It's 205/60/14. Boy, it was really, I was lucky to find a set of tires that were the perfect size. They actually make a Nankang. That was the only one I could find. Other than spending a whole bunch of money on some real pricey track tires that were the proper size. It's just 14-inch tires, just not so common anymore. Really, just don't see them every day. I did have it around the block once. It runs really good. Starting it cold. I still have to do a cold start injector. For some reason, the cold start injector does not seem to be cooperating. I did verify that it was getting power and ground, so I guess the used one that I put in still wasn't good. So I got to track down a new cold start injector for it for sure. But the top side, like I said, I painted it once and I just didn't do the car justice. I could have done a better job. So I think I'm going to redo the body work on this car, and I think I'm going to have someone else spray it. I don't get that much practice anymore painting, so I think I better leave it to a professional the next time. So here we go under the hood. This is where I like to spend my time now. Like I said, you saw the undercarriage. I'm almost done here. It's not perfect yet. So my strut brace, okay, I haven't decided what I wanted to do with it yet because it's an odd color. And, you know, I thought about just making it regular silver, but I don't know. I just feel guilty not having it a good proper match. I do have a bunch of good still pics. I should do a little, you know, running scrapbook on here so you could see some of my restoration stuff. Most people get tired of seeing stills, though, with restoration work. I think most people are just happy to see the finished job, you know, like I'm showing you here. So I'm hoping everybody thinks that's pretty cool. But I kept everything, you know, everything, all the mission controls. Still got everything. The exception of one thing there, EGR valve. I used the Japanese intake manifold. So I still have the original. I have the stock one. If I felt necessary later in life, maybe I could put it back in. But I even put the cruise control back in. It does work incidentally. Got a really nice, radiator overflow system is stock, which it's got a pretty extravagant system. I told you guys I was going to point out. Look at this. Isn't that crazy? A cold air intake for the alternator, you know? It's just, that's part of the reason why I think Toyotas are so dynamite. It just seems like they're so intuitive. They just think of everything, you know? Scotty Kilmer can't be wrong, huh? About Toyotas. So there you go. That's a basic tour. I think I'll sign off for now. I'm looking forward to taking it for a drive. And we'll take y'all for a ride in this thing. And everybody have a nice day and do something you could be proud of. And hopefully I'll have some other good videos for everybody to see. Hope you enjoy this one. Have a nice day. Bye.